Operation Fortune, Ruse, guerre, out in theaters, latest film from director Guy Ritchie, starring Jason Statham, Aubrey Plaza, Carrie Ells, Hugh Grant, and Josh Hartnett. Now, the thing with Guy Ritchie is that he is, for my money, probably the most inconsistent director currently working, and when going to see his movies, I never know what I'm gonna get. Sometimes he makes a fantastic film that I have a grand time watching, like with Snatch or Sherlock Holmes. Sometimes he'll come short of that excellence, but still make a solid, fun movie, like with The Gentleman, or Rock'n'Rolla, or Wrath of Man recently. And sometimes it'll just be a total disappointment, like the live-action Aladdin, or unfortunately, Operation Fortune. In theory, this is the exact type of film that Guy Ritchie knows how to make and knows how to make well. A spy mystery mixed with an action film that has multiple different characters and groups of interests competing against each other in a convoluted plot, only for all of it to be resolved and revealed and explained at the end with a great aha moment, like a magician completing a magic trick. And all along you have this snappy, witty, humorous, banter-like dialogue. But somehow in this particular picture, it just doesn't work. There is very little of that usual Guy Ritchie magic, and it feels like a watered down, derivative and uninspired version of the thing that he's most known for. The plot follows Jason Statham, who leads a team of private contractors tasked with recovering a mysterious briefcase stolen from the British government. He has to find out who stole it, who intends to sell it, and then who's the buyer, and then what is actually in the briefcase, because it's so mysterious that apparently even its owners don't know. As it turns out, in order to uncover the truth, Statham has to get close to a billionaire arms dealer, played by Hugh Grant, and in order to do so, he recruits Josh Hartnett, who plays a famous movie star and Grant's biggest idol. So with him as a sort of decoy, the team can infiltrate the billionaire's inner circle and surroundings and find out what's what. So there are multiple problems really with the film. The plot is pretty stupid, and the more you think about it when it's resolved, the more nonsensical it gets. Like, tiny spoiler, a lot of the film revolves around two different groups of bad guys against our good guys, competing for the briefcase. And at one point it's revealed that both of them have actually been hired by the same person. So what's the point then? To have them interrupt and clash against each other instead of just paying one of them and having the whole thing done in 20 minutes. Especially as the explanation seems to be that the villains didn't want to pay the first guy, so then they hired the other team and paid them instead to recover the briefcase, which doesn't make any sense. The action scenes are pretty uninspired, except for one car chase, particularly the burglary scene where Statham has to break into a mansion in the middle of the night. It's just straight up boring and feels like filler, and it doesn't have almost any impact on the plot. The snappy dialogue isn't that funny or witty this time around. It comes off as trying really hard to be cool, but you know how sometimes when someone is trying really hard, it ends up being even worse than if they were not trying at all. Well, that's what happens here. The characters are all rather one-dimensional and the performances are uninspired. I mean, Jason Statham is just Jason Statham, so no surprises there. But even people like Aubrey Plaza, who's been pretty captivating in everything I've seen her in so far, Legion, Black Bear, White Lotus, she doesn't really do anything interesting here. The one shining point and the exception to all of my points about the acting is Hugh Grant, who is once again having the absolute time of his life playing a slimy but charming asshole, and in the process he absolutely steals every scene he's in. He's ridiculously entertaining and really brightens up the screen whenever he's on it. And I really like that this seems to be his career trajectory for a couple of years now. He's played this exact type of character in The Gentleman and in Paddington 2 before, and somehow he manages to make each of those characters distinct and different from one another through a slightly different accent, way of speaking, the little mannerisms, the way he moves. He manages to put sort of individuality into those villain types and almost makes Operation Fortune bearable as a film. Almost but not quite. I felt that at the end of the day, even Hugh Grant, put it this way, one Hugh Grant is simply too little to consider this a worthwhile film overall, because it kind of fails in every other aspect. There are individual moments where it almost seems okay, moments where I cracked a smile or I thought, wow, this looks cool. But on the whole, it's just very mediocre, and that is quite disappointing.